But as I'm talking to you, I am seeing pictures of this train station and of pieces of the station collapsed onto the front of that Pascack Valley Line train. So we could jump to a conclusion, and I don't want to do that, but the thought might be that the people who are trapped would be the ones who are in that first car of the train of this Pascack Valley Line. So if you're seeing something, maybe you were at the train station this morning, maybe you have loved ones who were there and you want to describe what's going on, you can give us a holler here, 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. Again, this is what we know at this hour. Pascack Valley Line train that was headed to Hoboken, made it to the train station, for some reason rolled past the end where the train would normally stop and into the train station. EMS in New Jersey telling us 100 plus patients, but we do not know the extent of those injuries. And of course, as more information comes into us, we will pass it on to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to throw it over to Bernie and Sid. So it's you guys. You can take over right now. It's all yours, Bernie and Sid.
I thought you would never stop, Noam Laden. No, listen, this is a deadly serious tragedy, and thank you for that great coverage, Noam Laden. Since it occurred, it was the 838 into this Hoboken station, this PATH station. 200. We just learned that WNBC News is reporting that one person is dead.
One person dead, but over 100 hurt, some of them very seriously. And I hate to say this because it sounds so morbid, but one person dead, that will not be the number. The casualties, they say, are massive, blood everywhere. And my fear is, not even my fear, what I expect is that number will go up as I get the people. Because don't forget, there are some people here that are still trapped underneath a lot of the rubble. If you take a look at this thing from the air, the damage, the structural damage is absolutely mind-boggling. So, again, over 100 hurt, some very seriously. So far, only one dead, but my fear is that number will rise dramatically.
Yes, multiple critical injuries, also structural damage to the station, so it's not safe to actually even be in the station.
No, they've shut it down. That's a station, of course, don't forget, 1 million people every day, 50,000 every morning for that particular train line, and they have shut that thing down. Hoboken is a mess right now. In fact, let's go to our traffic guy right now. You hear Jeff McKay every morning with Imus, and he's got the latest what's going on in Hoboken, New Jersey. Jeff, it's Bernie and Sid. Good morning, pal. How are you?
Hey, good morning, guys. This is going to be one rough day for Hoboken. Now, all of the streets around the Hoboken train terminal are completely closed off. They brought in emergency crews, triage crews. They're actually doing triage in the street right around the Hoboken train terminal, as we have more than 100 injured from this train crash. Now, getting into Hoboken out of Jersey City is basically going to be impossible now. Best way, if you need to get into Hoboken, is going to be coming in via the northern end in Weehawken. But again, start to expect a lot of streets being closed in the area. Now, the other big cause and effect is going to be the entire transit picture, not just for now, but for the rest of the day and beyond, because the Hoboken train terminal is not going to be opening up anytime soon, as the roof has collapsed following this train crash. Now, New Jersey Transit suspended service into and out of Hoboken. You've got PATH train service suspended into and out of Hoboken, and the Hudson-Bergen Light Rail will not be running either into Hoboken. Now, the Hudson-Bergen Light Rail will run between 2nd Street and Newport. PATH trains will be operational through Newark, Harrison, Jersey City, and Newark and New York City. They're just not going to run into Hoboken. And also, New Jersey Transit is going to be cross-honoring their bus and rail tickets. Private bus carriers are too. Now, the New York Waterway Ferry is also going to be cross-honoring the New Jersey Transit rail tickets. However, the Waterway Ferry Hoboken South Terminal is closed. That's because it's adjacent to the Hoboken train terminal, and you can't get anyone in and out of there. So New Jersey Transit will cross-honor, Waterway Ferry will cross-honor, but the Hoboken South Terminal will also remain closed, and this is going to be a devastating situation for a while, as crews are still trying to get injured people out of the train that crashed. Bernie, Sid?
Jeff, do we know if the injuries were limited to people on the train, or were there people hurt on the platform or in the station itself?
I haven't been able to get that from Hoboken, but what I have been told, at least from EMS, is that they said almost all of the injured were on the train, so there may have been one or two, but bottom line is the injured were on the train, but the majority of those injured were in the front one or two cars of that train that went careening into the Hoboken terminal.
Yeah, those are always the two busiest cars, Jeff and Bernard, because as you know, that is the easiest exit to the station. Once you get there, you're off very, very quickly, so the first two cars are always very crowded. I've also heard multiple people say this morning who do take that train on a daily basis, they're always one car short every morning. Part of the issue is money. They're always one car short. That means a lot of people on these trains standing and kind of crammed in, especially in those first two cars. So between not spending money on extra cars, trains, I should say, every single morning, and seatbelts and all that stuff, we're going to find out that pinching pennies here may cost a couple of people their lives, including in the first two cars like you talked about just now, Jeff.
Yeah, and Sid, you just brought up a great point about the seatbelts. That's something that's definitely going to come up now, because obviously if people were wearing seatbelts, I think there would have been a number of less injuries, as people would not have been thrown out of their seats or thrown from standing up on these packed trains. And again, this train, from what we were told, was packed as it made its way into the terminal. And another question that's going to be brought up too: why didn't this train stop? Because they do have braking, special brakes on these trains. If they're going too fast, they will slow down, but something obviously happened here where that train did not slow down enough and crashed right off the tracks in through the terminal.
It's being reported that it was accidental, not intentional, but there really is no way to know at this point.
No.
So, I mean, you hate to invoke the potential that it was terrorism or some sort of lunatic, but that possibility still exists, does it not?
Especially here. I mean, come on, New York City. We just went through this last week. Not even a week ago. They shot the guy in Linden, New Jersey, with the bombs. We've been through 9/11. So anytime we see something that involves mass casualties, injuries, a big story like this, you can't help but living here. The first thing you think of is, oh my God, was the driver, I hate to say this, Muslim? Did somebody do this on purpose? An immigrant? It's the first thing that comes to mind.
Or a psycho.
Right.
I would say that. And also I would point out the station itself, structural damage, the people not allowed to go in. In fact, they evacuated the whole place. But the first responders, they're going in, just like they did on 9/11. They're going into an unsafe structure to help rescue people. So they spoke to the spokesperson, Jennifer Nelson. I saw this a little while ago. She's a New Jersey PATH trained spokesperson. And she did say, she confirmed the multiple critical injuries. And since then, we've learned that one person has died. And about 10,000 people use that station between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning on average.
That hour, but usually during drive time, about 50,000 every single morning.
And as far as the first two cars go, I myself avoid using the first two cars just for this reason. Because it scares the hell out of me.
My wife often says, Danielle, she won't fly in the front of an airplane. I always maintain if the airplane goes down, I don't care if you're sitting in the back of the plane or the front of the plane, you're going to die. She seems to think chances are better if you're in the back of the plane. She also says that the turbulence is less in the back of the plane. So she's another one. She will not sit in the front of a plane, in the first couple of cars, all that stuff. Yes.
Jeff, you got some...
Getting an update from NBC News. They are now reporting at least 3 people dead in this train crash in Hoboken. Just wanted to pass that along.
I'm afraid
it's going to keep going up, unfortunately, that number. Yeah.
It's going to go up all day. And there are families out there right now who know their loved ones and friends take this particular train, who are probably just beside themselves right now with not knowing what's happened to their loved ones on the train. And your heart goes out to them, of course, and the people perhaps still trapped.
I kind of feel bad. I take the B train every single morning from Kings Highway to Penn Station here. And usually, Bernard, it's a 40-minute trip. The B train is express from Kings Highway. The Q train, of course, is local. It's usually a 40-minute trip. For some reason today, it took us 40 minutes just to get from Atlantic Avenue to DeKalb Avenue over the bridge to Grand Street. And the conductor, this is about the time this crash happened in Hoboken, kept saying, well, there's something going on the bridge, the F train, this train. And I'm going, Jesus Christ, man, I got to get to work. Can we get this effing thing fixed? Almost the same exact time this tragedy happened in Hoboken, I was complaining about the extra time it was taking for the B train this morning to go over the bridge. So this kind of puts it all in its proper perspective.
Absolutely. You know? By the way, what bridge is Manhattan Bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 3 people dead reportedly. NBC News reporting that. WNBC, Channel 4 here in New York. It was the 838, 250 people on the train. 3 people dead, multiple critical injuries. People still trapped as we speak. Structural damage to the station itself. Everybody's been evacuated. We don't know if the injuries were limited to people on the train.
Because there were people on the platform, and don't forget, the train also at the very end of this crashed into the waiting area. So you had a waiting area where people kind of wait for the next train. It crashed into that as well.
Of course, last week we had the pipe bombs were found at the train station in New Jersey, adding to perhaps the tension, the anxiety, and the suspicion factor. But nothing is confirmed. We don't know. We can't know if it was accidental or intentional, and it's silly to speculate. But I mean, it's only human to do so at this point.
1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. We are on top of this like nobody else in this city. We've got Noel providing news, Jeff McKay providing traffic. Anything that happens, we will let you know right up until Curtis and Kubi come your way at noon. Bernie and Sid covering the latest tragedy in Hoboken, New Jersey. We'll come right back. Right after this, or no, we're sticking around?
We're going to stick around.
Okay.
We're going to stick around. By the way, Norm Layden takes this train every single morning.
Gunzelman does.
Intimately familiar with it, and so does our boy Guns, who is on his way out there, I think. And he's going to phone in and give it. We're trying to get in touch with a spokesperson from New Jersey Path to get some updates, but right now, all we can do is really just watch the local news and monitor the network news and try to garner and glean some information to pass along to the folks out there. But if you could just imagine, if you know somebody, 250 people on the train.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't know what train they caught, so it affects even more people than that. Somebody could have been on an earlier train or a later train. So you have 250 families, perhaps, at least, maybe 400 families, worrying about somebody right now in New Jersey, throughout the tri-state area. A lot of anxiety and anguish, and it does put things in perspective. Put your day in perspective. Put your life in perspective is what it does.
Well, I mean, these are people that got up in the morning and just do what they do every single day, right? They got up in the morning, got dressed, and going to work. I mean, that's and unfortunately this ends up happening, and people are going to die. A couple of dead already, and horrible injuries for, again, kind of like 9/11, right? Those people got up that morning and they did what they did every single day. They went to work in that building, and we saw what happened. Same thing with these folks. This is not supposed to happen.
Right, and these ambulance, the fire and the police personnel all heading into the danger area.
Yeah.
Again, the structural damage to the station. Not safe to be in there, but they're in there trying to save these people and get them out. They've roped off the area outside, not letting media in.
Completely closed.
Completely closed. I don't think we're going to get a lot of information in imminently, but
well, we knew that it was a bad situation in terms of injuries and casualties because of the response, Bernard, that you're talking about. A massive response from local police in Hoboken, in New Jersey, ambulances, you name it. They were on the scene, and on the scene very, very quickly and in big numbers, which led all of us to believe that this, in fact, was an accident which consisted of major casualties.
This train left Spring Valley, New York, and was due in the Hoboken station at 8:38. It was running late.
4 or 5 minutes, right?
4 or 5 minutes late. And so let's see, Spring Valley, New York to Hoboken. It was the Pascack Valley line, and it hit the wall of the terminal. It was the last stop, the end of the line. It hit the terminal wall, and it shook the station. From what I understand, I heard some witnesses earlier. They say it shook the station, and a lot of people were thrown around. Again, we discussed it earlier.
Not just shook the station, it took the roof down.
Collapsed the roof. And so people thrown around, and a lot of people trapped, multiple critical injuries. 3 people reported dead so far. But it will, I've always, your kids go to school now. My kids took the school bus for years and years. and there were no seatbelts on the school bus.
Right.
And I could not understand in this day and age of Mothers Against Drunk Driving and the seatbelt laws being what they are, that they wouldn't put seatbelts on school buses.
Money. It's very simple. It's money, and people will make the argument today that, by the way, if you're standing on a subway, a seatbelt is not going to help you. Let's go back to Jeff McKay. He's got some more details and more news. Jeff, back with Bernie and Sid. What's going on, pal?
Yeah, we just got word from EMS. Apparently, the more than 100 injured, some are being taken to area hospitals within Hudson County. That includes the Jersey City Medical Center in Jersey City, Christ Hospital also in Jersey City, Bayonne Hospital in Bayonne, and also the hospital in Hoboken are receiving the injured. And again, there were more than 100 people hurt. Also been told the majority of the injuries came in the first car, as well as the second car of this train that came in on the Pascack Valley line. And also, there were some people who were on the platform who were hit by flying debris when this train came barreling through. So they were injured as well. So injured were not just on the train. They were also on the platform.
So this train originated from Spring Valley, New York, correct?
That's correct. It started in Spring Valley on the Pascack Valley line. It was train number 1614, and apparently it was running late. It came in about a half an hour later than it normally was supposed to into the Hoboken terminal.
Do we even know the name of the conductor at this point? We don't know, obviously, what the intention was. It was just an accident or, God forbid, something more sinister. But do we even know the name of the conductor at this point?
No, they haven't released the name, but I did find out the National Transportation Safety Board is on its way to Hoboken. They sent what they call a GO team, which is one of their teams. They immediately get sent out and start setting up an investigation. So they're on their way to Hoboken right now.
So it originates from Spring Valley, runs through Bergen County, New Jersey, and ends in Hoboken. And I would imagine a lot of these commuters were the destination was New York City, was Manhattan. Jeff, no? Would that be logical to assume?
Correct.
Yeah.
Hoboken is the last stop on that Pascack Valley line, and from there you would have people going to the PATH trains to connect into New York, the Waterway Ferry. The Waterway Ferry terminal, Hoboken South, is just adjacent to the terminal, and because of the crash, that's why Waterway Ferry has had to shut that terminal down, but they would be going there as well. The Hudson-Bergen Light Rail would be able to take them through Hudson County and possibly link up with PATH further down the line at Exchange Place. So again, this is a major hub that people were coming into, and that train was packed when it barreled into Hoboken.
Has this crash, I think the numbers are about 50,000 on this specific train. Of course, 1 million ride those rails every single morning. That's how big this service is. Outside of the Hoboken station, is there any other cancellations, delays? What's going on with the rest of Jersey Transit?
Well, New Jersey Transit has suspended service into and out of Hoboken. Now, New Jersey Transit's operational, what you could do to get around this if you want to stay with the trains, is you go to Secaucus Junction, and that will link you up with just about everything. Also, New Jersey Transit running into Newark, you can transfer to a PATH train. PATH trains are not going to be running into and out of Hoboken. They use the same terminal. So PATH trains will run through Newark, through Harrison, Jersey City, and New York City, but they will bypass Hoboken until further notice.
Well, further notice, by the way, could be a very, very long time, because based on the structural damage, not just a train crash here, which of course is horrific enough, but the roof is caved in. I saw an aerial view, guys, of the actual damage. It's huge. I would expect the Hoboken line to be shut down for a long time, yes?
Yeah, because what happened is when this train came in, it took out the support beams that hold up the roof. And, Sid, as you said, when that train came through, it took the roof down. So there's major structural damage within the Hoboken station. And this station is not a brand new station. It's been around a long time. So there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done to fix this up.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeff McKay for WABC Radio. Bernie and Sid on this horrific crash out in Hoboken, New Jersey. By the way, New Jersey Transit bus and private carriers are honoring New Jersey Transit rail tickets and passes. Just by way of information. Now, on the line with us right now, we have a railroad engineering expert. His name is Gus Ubaldi. Gus, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Gus, welcome to the Bernie and Sid Show. We'll ask you this. I've never driven a train, and although Bernie has driven car service, he's never driven a train. So on a serious note, when the train does not slow down or stop, what possibly could have happened, because all I know is there's a kind of a backup brake system that even if the conductor doesn't do his job, there's a fail-safe in place to make sure what happened this morning does not happen. So just give us what could have possibly happened here for this tragedy to occur.
Well, the signal system that you're talking about, we refer to as cab signaling system. Today they're referring to it as positive train control. But the idea is that there are transmitters in the track that send a coded message to the train and will tell the train, go regular track speed, go 25 miles an hour, go 15, there's a train ahead of you, stop. And when you have what we call a civil speed restriction, like the 50-mile-an-hour curve outside of Philadelphia that they derailed at back in 2015, it'll be sending a signal that says 50 miles an hour. You have to program that to do that. So what I would ask the question is, what was in place coming into the station? They could have said, well, this is a 15 or 25 mile an hour area, and we're not going to put these transmitters in the track to stop the train automatically because, well, the operator is here and he's in yard limits and he's going to be going slowly and it's not an issue. That's what it makes the most sense as to what occurred here, that somehow the operator was incapacitated and did not slow the train down the way it was supposed to, and the way the signaling system was set up, it maybe gave him a 15 or 25 mile an hour speed indication coming into the station because he has to make his station stop.
So it is possible, as you just pointed out, the yard operator or the engineer, oftentimes they suffer a heart attack or something like that, and results in the train not stopping or the bus or whatever the hell it is.
That is correct. And you have alerters, or what we used to refer to as dead man switches, but there's a particular amount of time. You know, there's maybe 20, 30 seconds before you have to acknowledge the signal before the train then takes some sort of emergency action. You know, you're going 10 miles an hour, that's 15 feet per second. You're going 60 miles an hour, that's 88 feet per second.
Right.
You know, so in 20 seconds, you can travel a fair distance.
Right, exactly. Listen, Gus Ubaldi, he's thank you for appearing on Bernie and Sid and helping us out. He's a railroad engineering expert, and we are covering the breaking news out of Hoboken, New Jersey, where there's been a train crash, a horrific train crash on the Pascack Valley line, a train from Spring Valley to Hoboken. At the end of the line, it crashed into the terminal wall. There were 250 people on the train, multiple critical injuries. WNBC TV is reporting at least 3 people dead. And the structural damage to the station, the roof collapsed. Yeah. The first responders went in, however, and they're trying to. They wouldn't comment on people trapped. The New Jersey Path spokesperson, Jennifer Nelson.
Well, how many? How many? We know there are people trapped. We know that people standing on the platform waiting for the train hit by flying debris. So there are injuries. Certainly, the worst injuries are the people in the first 2 cars of that train, which received the worst of that impact. But people just standing in the platform and in the waiting area also hit by flying debris because the train broke apart, the roof collapsed. So there was a massive amount of metal and structural damage that took place. I do want to alert folks, I know it sounds trite now, but we did tweet it this morning on both of our websites and Facebook. We were intending to bring on the very, very funny Gilbert Gottfried on the show today. Obviously, with what's transpired in Hoboken, New Jersey this morning, we're not going to do that today. Gilbert will come back on a different date. So if you're tuning in at 10:35, expecting to hear Gilbert Gottfried, unfortunately, what's happened in New Jersey today, this horrific tragedy, now is what we'll talk about straight through noon. So Gilbert will be back on a different date.
And we're going to go to our news guy, Noam Layden, who is a regular commuter from Hoboken himself, knows the train station very well.
I do.
Take it away, Noam.
Hoboken train crash. Now the latest from 77 WABC.
All right, so let's tell you what we know at this hour. A commuter train barreling into the Hoboken train station.
Back on 77 WABC with Bernie and Sid all over the horrific train crash out in Hoboken, New Jersey. The train originating in Spring Valley, Spring Valley up in Rockland County, New York, of course, traveling through Bergen County into Hoboken, New Jersey, which was the end of the line. It hit the terminal wall. It's not clear how fast the train was going when it hit the terminal wall. Multiple injuries. You have WNBC TV reporting 3 people dead. Everybody else at this point just saying 1 dead confirmed. And people trapped. Nobody will confirm that people are trapped, but that's the reports that we're getting.
Our old friend John Minko, one of the great highlights in the history of the Amish in the Morning program, was Sid Rosenberg versus John Minko to win the sportscaster job on the Amish show. He's been a long-time WFAN sports update guy there. He was there this morning, and I guess they have some audio. Maybe we can call the fan and get Mink on, but John Minko was there this morning, and he saw it. And said that a lot of screams, a lot of flying stuff all over the place. And I guess, he lives in right by Paramus. I forget the name of the little town there in New Jersey, but he takes that train, I guess, every single day.
Oh, yeah, and I know he's a Bernie and Sid listener. He's
absolutely. Mink Man loves us.
He's sick of sports, and he loves us.
Yes,
let's face it.
Him and everybody else.
Sick of listening to the losers from 10 to 12 over there. Now, listen, this is serious, though. This is unfortunate. The structural damage to the station. There's an old station, this Hoboken station, and it's not safe to be in. It's been evacuated. So these people were traveling from Spring Valley through Bergen County into Hoboken Path, the Hoboken station. Then they were going to go downstairs and take the Path station.
I mean, some.
Or a ferry, perhaps.
Some. Hoboken is still a very busy area, kind of like Jersey City, tons of jobs there. But you're right, a lot of those people, the final destination is, in fact, here downstairs at Penn Station in Manhattan. And not only have they shut it down today, but, again, based upon what we have seen, if you have not seen the video of the damage, it is immense. The roof caved in, and like Bernard talked about earlier, it was something that we came to know on 9/11 as those buildings were coming down. Our guys are going up. These guys are going into a very dangerous area, an area that's been evacuated and will be shut down for quite some time. Again,
we don't know about the engineer or the yard operator, as our railroad engineering expert told us earlier, would be responsible for having the train slowed down. We did have Noam played a clip of an eyewitness who said that there are shorter trains for some reason. So the train
money. That's the reason.
Was more packed than it would otherwise be, especially in the front.
They say that with this specific rail, Bernard, that they have that issue every morning. They are always 1 train short every morning, and that is why there are so many people that are kind of crammed in and standing, making the first 2 cars very, very dangerous. And obviously they took the brunt of the impact this morning. It was not just this morning that they were a train short. That seems to be a daily occurrence with this line, and that goes back to money.
Okay, well, we have a couple of eyewitnesses on tape take a listen to this.
When we felt the train slamming or sliding into the station, we weren't necessary. We just wanted to make sure that everyone that we could help was standing on their feet. The second car kind of like jumped a little bit onto the first, like where we were standing. I was in between. I was able to stand up, and there were people in front of me, so I couldn't kind of like fall down to the ground, but I just toppled over on them.
1-800-848-9222. If you were there or if you saw it, please give us a call. And we also have a gentleman who was on the platform on audio here. He's going to describe something. Take a listen.
In a situation like that, I mean, there's just a lot of crying and screaming. And did hear some folks say, the train didn't stop. I mean, it just didn't stop. He basically said to me, I knew it wasn't going to stop, and I braced the front seat, because I knew it wasn't going to stop. And then things just started, people started flying and seats going forward and stuff like that.
Wow.
I mean, it could have been something. We talked to the engineer guy. He said, well, he could have had a heart attack, which obviously could have been the case. He could have been asleep. I mean, lots of times these accidents happen, and the engineer, the conductor is drunk or asleep. We don't know exactly what the condition of that person was, and that is going to tell a major part of the story when we find that out.
Yeah, we don't know at this point, accidental, intentional, none of that. We do have a guy who was on the train, and we'll take a listen.
What I saw, I was on the train that was previous to the one that crashed, and what had happened is when I got off the train that I was on, I just killed some time walking around the streets of Hoboken, and when I returned to the terminal, I was on the top step of the stairway heading down towards the PATH train where I looked to the right and there were screams, and you could see clearly from my vantage point of a train that simply did not stop. A train that perhaps tried to change gears or something like that, but it's similar to changing gears in a car, and all of a sudden the car takes off, and that's what happened here.
So he doesn't understand. Again, it's silly to speculate at this point, but human error or mechanical error, we don't know. Nobody knows. William from Westchester County apparently has a theory. William, welcome to Bernie and Sid.
I'll throw another theory your way. If you check out on Google Earth, you will see that the railroad's layup yards in Spring Valley is open to the public. It's the stub of a northerly line that used to go up to Haberstraw, and so in the old days there were, grade crossings all over the place. Sure. The railroad yard would accommodate, it looks like maybe 6 trains overnight, and there's a road that bisects it, and you can see pedestrians crossing right in front of engines. Somebody could easily, I suspect, get into the yard, screw around with the air brakes on those trains.
Wow. Well, listen, I don't know what you're saying. We're going to trust you, not to be true.
Check Google Earth.
No, we believe it. Again, that's going to be a possibility. All these crazy things kind of run through our head. Somebody may have sabotaged the train. Maybe the conductor did it on purpose. Maybe he had a heart attack. Maybe he fell asleep. Maybe he was half drunk. And all of these things are possibilities, including what William just said. Absolutely, but until we find out, it's all we know right now is that there's over 100 people hurt. At least 3 people are dead. And we can theorize all day long about why, but we've got an immense tragedy on our hands.
Of course, and add to those suspicions, perhaps it could easily just be mechanical error or some equipment failure or something like that. Well, let's hope it's not terrorism or something intentional or whatever it is. Our hearts and prayers go out to the victims and their families. And right now, the first responders are working to rescue people that are trapped in the train. Nobody will confirm it, but we're getting reports that there are people trapped at this time. Yeah. They're in there. They 3 people, again, WNBC TV reporting 3 people dead. Other outlets reporting just 1 person dead, but we suspect that number will rise. And let's go to Frank from Pennsylvania. Frank has a question. Frank, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing? Enjoy the show. Hey, listen, you guys talk about 250 passengers on that train with 1 engineer. In the airline business, if you carry more than 9 people, you got to have 2 pilots.
Yeah, again, maybe that's a good question, and of course there'll be a lot of second guessing and reviews. But again, if money is the reason why they shorten the trains,
well, it is.
It would be another reason why they would cut back on personnel, I would imagine. Right. But you can only cut back so much.
But I would think
without affecting safety.
But I would think that these trains, this train's been in business for a very, very long time, and it's always been 1 engineer, 1 conductor. Now it takes a tragedy like this to go, well, why is that the case? But if these trains have been running all this time with that amount of people, they've all got that amount of people, and there's never been an accident like this, then that's kind of Monday morning quarterback today to say, well, there should be more conductors or engineers. It's seemingly the first big tragedy with one of these rails, yes?
It's we've had other incidents for example, on the Metro North line about a year ago.
Right.
Yeah, we had one up at Spuyten Duyvil where it comes around the curve, and it turns out that the engineer sort of fell asleep around that curve there, though it's a nasty curve. 1-800-848-9222. We also have another clip of an eyewitness who said something that's disturbing. Take a listen.
It seemed like an explosion, but in reality it was not. But it was a massive. They went through the terminal. And into the terminal, and went through all the support systems and. It was massive noise and contact, and there were several people that I was with, obviously at the top of the stairs, and people that were halfway down the stairs going to the path, and it was a mad scramble to get away from the terminal as quick as possible.
That, by the way, is in fact the voice over at WFAN Sports Update guy John Minko. That was Minko talking right there.
Wow.
He's been all over the news today.
Yes. Listen, I'm glad he's not hurt because we love John Minko.
He's a treasure.
But what he said was it sounded like an explosion, but he doesn't think it was. However, what he also said was disturbing as well. It sounds like we don't know how fast the train was going when it crashed into the terminal wall. It sounds like it was going very fast, according to what Minko said there. And,
but there were other reports that say it was not going very fast.
So you're saying Minko's a liar?
No, I'm saying when you're watching.
First we love him, now he's a liar.
He may be a liar. There seem to be conflicting reports that the train was not going all that fast, which really makes you wonder how all that damage actually occurred. But he was there, so that was his eyewitness account.
Again, it was over 2 hours ago, 8:38. It was due in the Hoboken station. It arrived at about 8:42. It crashed. It arrived with a bang, as Minko pointed out. The 8:38 that originated in Spring Valley, travels through Bergen County, New Jersey, to get to the Hoboken station, where people get off, and a lot of them do go downstairs to the Path station or go take the ferry into Manhattan. A lot of them, the destination is Hoboken, New Jersey.
Yeah.
But yes, they've walled it off. Structural damage to the station. It's an old station. I think it was there before. In fact, I'm sure it was there before they built the tunnels, before trains were able to go underneath the Hudson River. You used to have to take a ferry from New York. If you wanted to take a train to Philly or Washington, D.C., you'd have to take a ferry from New York out to Hoboken, New Jersey is where you would go, and then you get on the train. But in the early 1900s, I believe it was about 1910, I read a book about the building of Grand Central Station and Penn Station. So it was about around then where they built the tunnels. And so Hoboken's been around.
It's an old
since the
station.
1800s.
Yes, and again, we talked about money being an issue here. Why are there no seatbelts on the train? They will tell you that people standing, it ain't going to help them. But why are there no seatbelts on the train? Why so little conductors for that amount of people? And I've been telling you all morning long, the issue is money. That's the end of it.
It's impractical.
Keith Smolin, a guy that lives in New Jersey, he's the man that created the unofficial Bernie and Sid WABC page on Facebook, which, by the way, has over 1,300 members right now. Does a very, very good job. He lives in Jersey. He just sent me a message. He said, Sid, you are correct. Governor Christie in New Jersey has cut funding to NJT as of late. The last 2 monthly board meetings were actually canceled. Also, an interim executive director is in charge. No real leadership. So here's Keith Smolin, a big fan of the show. He blogs about us every single day, living in Jersey, saying exactly right. Chris Christie in New Jersey has cut all the funding to this.
Sounds almost a little bit of a politicization of an early sad situation. However, we'll go to Jeff McKay right now, WABC's traffic guy. Jeff?
And the traffic and transit situation around the Hoboken station. Let's start with that. All the streets that are around Hoboken Terminal are shut down. That includes Observer Highway, Washington Street coming in from Newark Street, Newark Avenue as well is going to be closed off as you get into Observer Highway. And this is also creating a logjam, not just on Marin Boulevard that goes from Jersey City into Hoboken, but also at the Holland Tunnel coming back into New Jersey. Traffic is jammed over to the Jersey side because of all the traffic that's kind of gridlocked here on the Jersey City side of Hoboken. Also, Hoboken Avenue, Palisade Avenue, Patterson Avenue, all going to be impacted with a lot of extra traffic. So the bottom line, Hoboken police have already put out the word they don't want anyone near this area. That's even why they're keeping the media a block or two away, just so they can get their emergency crews in and take care of all the injured. Now, New Jersey Transit, the train service has been suspended into and out of Hoboken. PATH trains have also been suspended into and out of Hoboken because PATH shares the New Jersey Transit rail station there. Hudson Bergen Light Rail, they have suspended their rail service into and out of Hoboken as well. Here's how you get around it. New Jersey Transit buses are going to cross-honor both the PATH and New Jersey Transit tickets along with the Hudson Bergen Light Rail tickets. Waterway Ferry is going to cooperate as well. They are cross-honoring tickets. However, the Hoboken South Waterway Ferry Terminal is closed down because that ferry terminal is right adjacent to the Hoboken train station. Now, New Jersey Transit will be running trains, obviously not into and out of Hoboken for the foreseeable future, but you can transfer in both Newark and at Secaucus Junction to try to make your way into and out of New York. No word yet from New Jersey Transit on how they're going to work their afternoon commute, because obviously with Hoboken's train center completely out of service, this is going to be a major impact to the afternoon commute. We're still waiting for New Jersey Transit to come up with an afternoon plan. PATH trains will be operational again, but they will bypass Hoboken until further notice. And if you're going to be driving across the Hudson right now, the one bit of good news, the GW Bridge delays at least have eased out into New York City. Bernie, Sid?
Thanks. Hey, listen, Jeff, you reported earlier that WNBC-TV was reporting that there were 3 fatalities. Everybody else is still going with 1 fatality. From what we understand, any change on that?
No. The official word, at least out of Hoboken right now, is 1 confirmed fatality. However, WNBC-TV is the one that is saying 3. Bottom line is there were also more than 100 injured, and we did find out from the authorities in Hoboken all of the injured that were taken to hospitals. They were either taken to Bayonne Hospital in Bayonne, Jersey City Medical Center, or Christ Hospital in Jersey City, or the Hoboken Hospital in Hoboken.
You also mentioned, Jeff, that for some of the folks, I guess, that maybe were in more dire shape, I don't know, did not get to the hospitals, that right outside this train station would be a triage unit. Have we seen anything that would tell us that is the case?
Yes, they have set up, authorities came in immediately. The EMS crews set up a large triage area to treat the injured. It was right at Warrington Plaza, which is just outside of the Hoboken train terminal, and they took up more than a city block in that area to set up the triage, and ambulances have just been coming in, coming out that whole time, which is why all the streets around the terminal have been shut down so they can get the emergency crews in and out.
Jeff McKay on Bernie and Sid on 77 WABC. Excellent job.
Great job.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. I've just been told from some other listener out there, and again, a listener called us with this. Now a listener debunks this, that it is untrue that where that train originates from, the yard where it is at night, that it is in fact enclosed now. It used to be open, and there was a way for pedestrians to get in. There was a caller that called and said, hey, maybe somebody overnight went in and did something to the train. I've been told by another listener that is not true, that you can no longer enter that yard. So that would mean at least their sabotage would not be the case.
All right, that's good to hear. Good news there. Now, you and I had a discussion just about 10 minutes ago about the age of the Hoboken station, and I gave you a little history lesson on ferries and stuff like that. Well, I Wikipedia'd it, and listen to what it says. The station opened in February of 1907, this Hoboken station, right? That's how old it is. So it's, what is
109 years old?
109, very good. Now, this is what it says, the history. It says, until the opening of the North River tunnels and the Hudson and Manhattan Railroad tubes around 1910.
Bang!
What did I say?
You nailed it, 1910.
I mean, to the exact year.
Yes.
1910, travel to Manhattan from most of the continental USA required a transfer to a ferry from the Hudson River, at the time often called the North River. So there you go. I just wanted to...
You nailed it.
And I'm crowing right now.
Yes, you are.
But I mean, I'm like a walking encyclopedia.
You're like Hillary Clinton on Tuesday morning. I mean, calm down.
I know, I got to relax.
It is surreal, though, when you hear some of these eyewitnesses, even read some of the stuff on television, say that the train literally flew through the air. The train went airborne. That is the exact verbiage being used. Flew through the air and went airborne. And there are some witnesses, including John Minko from WFN, who said the train was going far faster than usual, which, of course, would be the reason why the train went airborne.
So you hear, I put 2 and 2 together. Minko and what you're seeing now on CNN, the quote, the train flew in the air, and it says, quote, unquote, going far faster than usual. And what Minko said, an eyewitness, a man we know and love, the train was at least 60 miles per hour, something like that. It was going very fast. It was not going 50 miles per hour as was initially reported or speculated about.
It just seems impossible that would cause that much. Not people will die at 50 miles per hour, but the amount of structural damage for the roof to cave in and all that to happen, there had to be some speed from this train.
And the $1 million question right now is why? Why and how? Was it human error? Was it mechanical error? Was it accidental? Was it intentional? Those are the questions that are going to be asked and might not be answered for days. We just don't know. But we do have an engineer. We have this
from another train.
From another train. This is on tape. Okay, take a listen to this guy.
The engineer was slunched over in the cab. Yeah, so they just assumed he was dead. Everybody at Pre-Color ran to try to help, but the police all preferred more people who were more experienced, and like I said, I just backed up actually because, like I said, they all flooded in to help people, but people were crying, and it was sad, man. It really looked sad. When it happened, it was so shocking. It's like people just ran and just stared at first. It's like you don't believe that happened, and then you got to wake up and realize, oh, you got to help people.
So what you take from that there is the very first part of audio there where the guy says that the conductor, the engineer, the person driving that train was slumped over, thought he was dead, which would make sense. Why, again, the train never slows down, why the train crashes.
But I would ask, before you conclude that sentence, I would say, was he talking about as the train came into the station, or was he talking about after the accident?
I think he said as the train was coming into the station. Let's replay that crash one more time, the very first clip.
The engineer was slouched over in the cab. Yeah, so because they assumed he was dead.
Okay, so we don't know at that point. You're right. There is no indication as to whether that was before or after the impact.
So in any case, it seems like he may be the fatality that is being reported by most outlets. One, again, WNBC TV saying 3.
Well, he's not going to survive that. I mean, again, the most of the people that were injured the worst were in the first 2 cars of that train. So obviously the conductor, the engineer at the very front of that train, very little chance he could survive.
It's very scary. I hate riding in the first car. I mean, it really is. It's harrowing. If you ask me, we have another eyewitness. Crash is going to play a clip of this guy. Take a listen.
The minute we turned around, we approaching the station, so everybody's thinking the train is going to slow down, and it just collided. And at first, our thoughts were like something exploded, or because typically there's warning. There was no warning. Like everybody just stunned. Did you fall?
Wow.
Very sad. I mean, these are actual individuals with families out there that are worried about them, don't know what happened to them at this point, and just it's terrifying.
They do what I do every single morning. I get up every single morning, and I hop on a train from Brooklyn to Manhattan to come to work, and you expect to get there.
You do. You don't expect. I mean, and that's just, I mean... Yeah, it's just awful. I mean, I can't even. People trapped right now, perhaps, and again, multiple fatalities, multiple critical injuries, I should say. 3 fatalities according to Channel 4, 1 according to everybody else, and nobody knows the reason for the accident at this point.
Not yet. Over 100 injured. They've been taken to local hospitals. The outside of the train station, a triage as we speak. 1-800-848-WABC. 1-800-848-9222. We're going to stick with this story. Obviously, a huge story, not just here in New York and New Jersey, but all over the country, and get you the latest. But a Hoboken resident himself with the latest on this situation. Noam, he's got your news.
Broadcasting from the Nouveau Fat Loss Studios.
WABC, Noam Layden from the WABC Newsroom.
Hoboken train crash. Now the latest from 77 WABC.
Back here, hour number 2 of the Bernie and Sid show. Obviously, we spent the entire first hour talking about this horrific train crash in Hoboken, New Jersey. We will spend hour number 2 doing this as well until Curtis and Kubi come your way at noon. You just heard Norm give you the specifics, and they're not good. Train going faster than usual. Crash this morning in Hoboken, hitting debris, flying all over the place, hit people in the waiting area on the platform. The impact was massive. The first 2 cars, people in the first 2 cars sustained massive injuries. There are massive casualties here. Right now the reports are 3 dead, over 100 injured. Both of those numbers expected to rise throughout the day. They've set up a triage outside the train station in New Jersey. 3 or 4 local hospitals now being flooded with patients being driven there from the scene. Hoboken is shut down. The train station is shut down. It is a horrific event going on in Hoboken right now.
There were 250 people on the train, according to reports. People still trapped. And, yes, initially it was Channel 4 WNBC just saying 3 people dead. Now you have CBS and other outlets saying that at least 3 people are dead. And about 10,000 people use that station between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. It happened at 8:45 a.m. The train crashed into the terminal wall, didn't stop. Apparently, it's going at a high rate of speed, according to all the witnesses.
Which would make sense based upon the damage, the structural damage. The roof caved in there, and if you take an aerial look at what happened there, it looks like the place was blown up, quite frankly.
Right, and it's not safe to be in the station. However, the first responders, they head into the unsafe structure, and they're in there right now trying to save people, rescuing people as we speak. On the line with us, Sid.
Let me get before you get on the line. Just want to tell you that 3 people have been killed. That is the latest report. One of those 3 was, in fact, a person just standing on the platform.
Oh boy,
that was killed in this horrific event.
Okay, so on the line with us right now is a consultant for transportation safety, Carl Berkowitz. Thank you for joining Bernie and Sid on WABC, Carl.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. So, but you've heard all the reports. You've heard it all. I just have to ask you the question. What do you think happened?
Well, I think it's a little too early to say what happened, but there probably were things that could have been done to make sure that it didn't happen.
Well, let me ask you this. I've been hearing all morning long, in case the engineer passes out, we don't know, he was unresponsive after the crash, how he was before the crash, but let's hypothesize here and say that he was rendered, he was unconscious, to a heart attack, sleeping, whatever it was. I've been told there's a switch, or there is something that happens, a fail-safe, if you will, just in case the engineer cannot drive the train. That didn't work either, obviously. What is the real story on that?
Well, it does work. It's called the dead man switch, and what it is he has to keep his hand on the master controller at all times. If he takes his hand off the master controller, the train goes into emergency braking.
So if he passes out or, God forbid, dies and his hand just falls off, he slouches over and dies, so he can't keep his hand on it, what happens next?
It goes into emergency braking.
Well, why didn't that happen? Yeah. Why don't you think that happened?
Because he probably had his hand on the control.
So do you think it was some sort of mechanical error then?
It's hard to speculate. It could be human error. It could be mechanical error. For a long time now, the federal government has been pushing the railroads. You know, we had the accident in Philadelphia and Westchester and other places, what they call positive train control. And this is what takes the control of the speed out of the hands of the operator, and the operator has no way of overriding the positive train control. So coming into a station, they would have a very slow speed, and the positive train control would make sure that this train operated at that proper speed.
I ask this question of complete ignorance. Obviously, I've never driven a train. I wouldn't know how, obviously. But for an airplane, for example, they've got a pilot and a co-pilot. If you've got 250 people on that train every single morning on a train going high speeds, and God forbid something happens to the engineer driving that train, why wouldn't there be a second guy, a second person, I should say, just in case something goes awry with the first engineer?
Well, there's not another person to operate the train, but the person actually in charge of the train is the conductor. The conductor is in charge of the train, but the conductor is like one step below being usually the promotion is, they get trained first as conductor, then next they get trained as train operator. So the conductor is really probably not qualified to operate the train. So there is no backup operator.
Speaking with Carl Berkowitz, who is a consultant on transportation safety, Carl, on Bernie and Sid on WABC, talking about the horrific crash of the New Jersey Path train in Hoboken, New Jersey. Carl, we were talking earlier about, first of all, these trains were shortened for some reason. We don't know why. But making the first and second cars more packed than they normally would. But we were also talking about how people were flying through the train. There's talk about seat belts and stuff like that. I mean, that's just not... It's not ever going to be practical to put seatbelts in a train. Am I correct?
Well, they've had it, just to go a step backwards. There's only 5 or 6 states in the United States that require seatbelts of school children on school buses.
Right.
And almost everybody resists, seatbelts on buses, seatbelts on trains. So there is a lot of resistance to that, and probably it could have helped. People, go flying, and that's how they get hurt and get injured. But usually the result of, a high-speed stop, the impact and the effect on the body, on the human body. Don't forget the human body is, soft tissues and what have you.
Yeah.
Well, the seatbelts probably could work.
Yeah, but I mean, Carl, we often say this after a horrific event, if it could have saved one life. And all I keep hearing all morning long, throwing the politics out the window right now, is that the reason why there's a short train and these trains are extra crowded and there are no seatbelts is they don't want to spend the money. That is the bottom line. If you can save one life, it's worth it, but they don't want to spend the money. You care to talk about that?
There have been various studies if people would even use them. And you know how hard it has been to get everybody to use their seatbelt in an automobile, how many years it took to make everybody compliant. And then when we went to having children seatbelted in the rear seats, how long it took to get everybody compliant.
Right, but not only that, though, it's impractical because not everybody sits on a train. People stand. I mean, you would have to. It just couldn't be done. It's just not practical. No way in hell, in my opinion.
Well, you could have seatbelts, but studies have shown that people wouldn't use them.
Well, how could people standing up use a seatbelt?
No, they can't. But the people sitting down, you could save their lives.
Right, but then you have to pack the train to make it cost effective. You have to have people standing up, or else it wouldn't be cost effective. You wouldn't have a transportation system. Anyway, call.
It would be good if everybody was seated on the train, but it's not happening.
Okay, hey, listen, Carl Berkowitz, we thank you very, very much for joining Bernie and Sid on the WABC on this horrific Hoboken train crash. He's a consultant on transportation safety.
Thank you, Carl.
Carl Berkowitz, thank you very, very much.
What he said there, which I took away from, was the man has his hand, the engineer, the guy driving the train, has his hand on this control. As long as his hand is on this control, the train does not go into the emergency brake mode. If, in fact, his hand falls off of that, then it would do that. So he led me to believe, this guy, and of course he knows more about trains than I do, that when this driver, this engineer, was rendered unconscious, you're thinking before the crash, that his hand was still on the control, which did not at that point allow the train to go into its emergency brake system, which would explain why the train never did stop, picked up speed, and crashed.
His hand stayed on the control.
That was his point.
Right. I mean, it's hard to figure. It's so then maybe it was mechanical. Again, we can't speculate. But if you're in a train,
no, but that wouldn't be mechanical, because if his hand stayed on the control, that would prohibit the train from going into the emergency brake mode. So that wouldn't be mechanical. It would be just really tough luck that's where the guy's hand ended up.
Right.
1-800. According to that guy.
And 1-800-848-WABC, Bernie and Sid, we're going to take a short break, and we're all over this horrific train crash with 3 people dead in Hoboken, New Jersey, at the New Jersey Path Station. Multiple critical injuries, people still trapped. We're back after this.
We plowed, right through the bumper. The platform never slowed down. I mean, the experience was almost kind of like you almost felt like you were in an off-road vehicle, bouncing around, in your seat. And then, afterwards, there was some panic. People were trying to smash the windows out, trying to get out, and kind of trying to calm people down. And a few people climbed out the windows, but then, they got the doors open.
All right, another eyewitness to what happened, this horrific crash in Hoboken, New Jersey. We've been covering for you all morning long here on Bernie and Sid. Joseph Scott speaking right now from the hospital in Jersey City. That is one of the hospitals, 3 or 4 local hospitals treating the victims. He says some victims in critical and or serious condition. Latest reports have 3 dead, over 100 injured. But our fear is here that we both expect those numbers to rise throughout today. And, one of the things about something like this that happens, and we have events in New York all the time that go like this, is news tends to be very, very slow. There are 1,000 inaccuracies. There are 2 million theories on why these things happen. And so it's always interesting to go back and listen to the first couple of hours on radio of what we think may have happened, what the callers may think may have happened. We brought on engineers. We have callers saying they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And then when you find out exactly what happened, you find out that it's so difficult with big stories like this to get you exact and accurate information early on. Just the way it is.
Long on speculation, short on facts in the initial minutes, hours after a tragedy. You're absolutely right about that, Sid Rosenberg. But somebody who does have facts is our news guy here on Bernie and Sid, Noam Laden. And
We are live in the W.
And, he basically said to me, I knew it wasn't going to stop, and I braced the front seat, because I knew it wasn't going to stop. And people started flying and seats going forward and stuff like that.
And then, of course, there's the other side that just will get you completely outraged as they're treating these patients. We continue to get reports as there's no service out of New Jersey Transit Terminal because of this accident. The path isn't running. It's hard to get to the ferry, so people are trying to get into the city or maybe back home via car services, and we're getting word still of price gouging by some of these cab drivers. I mean, you can't get any more disgusting than that. Double, triple what they're normally charged to get people in and out. I was hoping not everybody's doing it, and the fact that we're calling them out here on 77 WABC, they'll stop doing that. But keep it here, 77 WABC all day long, as it's continuing coverage of this train accident that took place Hoboken. Noam Layden from the WABC newsroom.
Bernie and Sid, 77 WABC. Hoboken train crash. Now the latest from 77 WABC.
Being an engineer for 17 years, I know brakes. It was quiet, really. It was just quiet. I think it wasn't a lot of people there either, because maybe they got on their trains and left, but it was kind of quiet. And all I remember just hearing a kaboom, and it sounds just like a bomb, man. I ain't lying. I mean, if you didn't see the train there, and you came out and didn't see the train, you would swear it was a bomb. That's what it sounded like.
All right, that in fact was the engineer at the other train in the station when, in fact, the train in Hoboken made contact. The impact sounding like an explosion. Of course, it was just huge. It ripped the roof down, caused an immense amount of structural damage. And as you've heard Noam and me and Bernard report all morning long, over 100 injuries, some very, very severe, 3 reported dead, but many people at local hospitals in serious to critical condition. And it's another tragic event going on in our backyard.
And people still trapped as we speak.
I believe they're gone.
Reports.
I believe that is not
let's
true.
Hope so.
Yeah,
let's
I believe that they have now, according to the last thing I've seen, all the passengers that were in fact trapped have been rescued from the train. I believe that is the case.
Let's go to Jeff McKay, our own WABC's own Jeff McKay. Jeff, good morning. You're on with Bernie and Sid. What do you know for currently?
Well, right now, currently, one thing that's going to be definitely looked at now, we got word from News 12. Apparently, we were talking before about, these trains are supposed to have certain things that can stop trains if it's going too fast. Well, apparently, according to News 12, the train that crashed in Hoboken was not equipped with the auto-stopping PTC system.
What?
Apparently, and this is going to be a big issue.
You serious? I thought every one of those trains had that, every one of them.
You and me both thought that, but apparently, from what News 12 is saying, no New Jersey Transit trains are. There was a deadline to have this system installed. The deadline was 2015. The deadline was then extended to 2018.
Oh, boy.
So this train that went in did not have
Here's the money issue again. They don't want to spend money on these things. So then that makes sense, I guess, if in fact this engineer, this conductor, this driver was rendered unconscious for any reason, from sleeping to a heart attack, and he was not able to slow down, then there was no fail-safe to make sure that the train was going to be okay.
Yeah, when we got word that the locomotive went airborne, as we've been reporting here on 77 WABC, that's another thing that kind of triggered, hey, where was this auto-stopping system? And if that system wasn't in place, then yes, that train was coming in at a high rate of speed, and obviously to go airborne, considering how much the weight of that locomotive was, that train was moving awfully fast.
Would the locomotive be at the front or the back of the train?
You mean the engine? Oh, the locomotive,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, in this case, apparently it was probably in the front if it went airborne, because everything in the back probably stayed on track.
Somebody actually told me earlier today that the engine is not in the front of that train. That, in fact, the engine is in the back.
Some trains are. I know I've ridden on New Jersey Transit before. I've seen the engines on the front, and on some I've seen the engines on the back. It really depends on the individual train.
Hey, Jeff McKay, you've done a great job with us all morning.
Great job.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Jeff.
And we're going to go now to Joe from New Jersey. Joe, good morning. You're on with Bernie and Sid. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, guys. Listen, I got first-hand knowledge. My uncle and my grandfather were engineers in the railroad, Erie-Lackawanna, and New Jersey Transit. All the information you got, from what I can gather, is incorrect, because basically That first of all, the engine is actually, it's a diesel engine, and it's in the back. So the train is actually going backwards into the train station. It travels, when it's going north, it travels the correct way. In other words, when it's going back south, back into the train station, it's going back.
It's being pushed.
It's being pushed, right. So the service car is the car where the engineer operates the train, and he has controls in the little cab in the front where he operates the engine. And there is a dead man switch on it. I don't know what this other guy was talking about, but there is a dead man switch. And the way that switch, because I've been on those trains with my grandfather, and I grew up in that train station. The way it's situated so that even if a guy passes out, he's not, his whole body isn't going to lay on the handle, and there's pressure on the handle, so that when you have to actually hold that handle down in order for the train to keep operating. If you pass out, that's why they call it a dead man switch, because basically, if you're unconscious, you don't have the strength to keep that handle down. So the only thing that it could be is that, in my assumption, from what I'm not a professional at this, but I mean there had to be some sort of mechanical failure because there's air brakes on those trains, and the engine in the back, if there was some mechanical communication problem where, the engineer was trying to stop the train, and the engine in the back, which is in the back of the train at this point, doesn't stop, it's going to push that train right through the train station, and that's how you would have all those people.
One thing I would say, Joe, is that it wasn't a caller who called us with that. That is Jeff McKay. He works for us. He's our traffic guy. He spoke to somebody locally at News 12, and he said that they don't have the dead man switch. So it's not just caller.
No, he said the fail-safe or whatever operating system. That's different. That's where, in other words, I think it's when the train is entering the station, the tracks will automatically slow the train down.
Gotcha.
Or there's something. But those trains do have they call it a dead man switch, and that's the reason why they call it. So anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that. So okay.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
I love listening to you guys.
Hey,
Thank you.
You're the man. Appreciate it. That was a great call, edifying call, I would say, Joe. Thank you very much from New Jersey. Again, at least, one dead. CNN keeps reporting one dead. CBS, NBC say 3 dead, multiple critical injuries. And there was the 8:38 train. It came in at 8:45 and went through the terminal wall and caused structural damage. The roof collapsed. Bernie and Sid on WABC. We're going to come back right after this.
77